Hello, I'm Nick Huntington Klein, and what I'm going to be talking about today is marginal cost, marginal benefit, and the concept of efficiency. So first of all, let's talk about what marginal benefit and marginal cost are. We've talked about this a little bit before, but the basic idea is this. We are thinking marginally. When we are thinking about whether we want to do something, we want to think about, okay, relative to what? We've been talking about things like opportunity cost. If I choose to go to the dance, I can't go to the movie, and vice versa. But this also applies when we're thinking about how much of something to do. If I'm going to buy 5 apples, that means I'm not buying 4 apples instead. I'm also not buying 6 apples. So in the question of how much of something to do, there's also that question of, well, how can I think about what I'm going to do relative to my other options? And it turns out that the way to think about these things is marginal. I want to think, for each unit of thing that I could do, what is the additional benefit of doing just one more unit? Just one more is what economists mean when we say marginal. Okay, so what is marginal benefit? Let's say that I'm currently planning to buy 4 apples and I'm thinking about buying the 5th apple. The marginal benefit of that 5th apple would be how much more I would enjoy having 5 apples over 4 apples, right? It's not how much am I going to enjoy having 5 apples overall. It's not how much do I have to pay for this additional apple. That would be the marginal cost. It's how much more would I enjoy having this apple over the number of apples that I already have. That's what marginal benefit means. You're always taking what do I get from this amount relative to just one less. Same thing with marginal cost. If I'm thinking about marginal cost, what I'm asking is how much more do I have to give up, both in terms of money or other stuff or time or whatever it is. Okay? What is the marginal cost of getting one more apple? Well, of course, it's going to be whatever I have to pay to get that apple, plus whatever else I'm giving up to get that one apple instead. Maybe if I get that extra apple, I'm going to have to eat that apple instead of something else I might enjoy as well. Right? So we have to also incorporate all those opportunity costs and things like that. But the basic idea is we have marginal benefits and marginal costs, and we can maximize our own economic surplus. We can maximize our own surplus by choosing to do the amount of something that sets our marginal benefit and marginal cost equal to each other. We want them to be equal. We want to keep doing more of something until the marginal benefit equals the marginal cost. Why is that? So think about it this way. If I'm thinking about, I'm going to start with from zero. I'm going to start from I haven't bought any apples yet. Am I going to buy the first apple? Well, what's the marginal benefit? Let's say that I value that first apple at $5, but it's going to cost me $1. Well, if I'm going to get $5 from it and it costs me $1, that's clearly worth it. I'm going to go ahead and buy that first apple. Okay, now we're thinking marginally, we've got one apple. Are we going to get the second apple? So that first apple I valued at $5 because I really want an apple. But once I've already had an apple, I don't really need the second one quite as much. Maybe I'm getting a little tired of apples. So instead of the $5, I would only value the second apple at $4. But it still only cost me $1, so 4 is still greater than $1. So I'm still going to buy the second apple. Third apple, maybe that one I only value at $3, but it only cost me $1. So again, marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, which means I want to keep going. Right? If the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost, that means that I want to keep buying. Right? Because that means that there's more benefits minus costs that I can be adding. The more times I buy something for which the benefit exceeds the cost, I'm getting better off. So as long as marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, I want to keep going. So I buy the third apple because 3 is greater than 1. The fourth apple, maybe I value that one at 2. 2 is greater than 1. I'm going to do that. The fifth apple, well, now maybe I value that one at $1 and it costs me $1. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that one. I'm pretty much indifferent at that case. But let's just say that when I'm indifferent, I'm going to buy the thing. Because when we turn into calculus and intermediate, it'll work out a little bit better that way. So when the marginal benefit was greater than the marginal cost, I wanted to keep buying. And so why don't I keep going further? Well, if I keep going further, what's going to happen? Well, if the next apple, instead of valuing it at $1, I value it at 50 cents, well, then the marginal benefit would be 50 cents. The marginal cost might still be $1. Now the cost is greater than the benefit. It's clearly not worthwhile for me to buy that 6th apple. So as long as marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, I'm going to keep buying. As soon as they become equal, I want to stop because going further than that would mean buying some units for which the cost exceeds the benefits, and I don't want that. So I can maximize my own economic surplus by choosing to buy a number of units where the marginal benefit equals the marginal cost. Marginal benefit equals marginal cost is what I like to call the economist's golden rule. Pretty much all economic analysis is based at some level on that idea. And so it pops up everywhere, from the stuff that you're doing in this class to the stuff that economists do in their research papers to some degree or another. And this isn't just for the task of buying stuff. It's also for the task of producing and selling stuff. Am I going to make and produce and sell one more unit? Well, what's the marginal benefit? Maybe I get paid $1 for that apple. What's the marginal cost? Well, I had to pay 10 cents to grow and pick and ship and all that good stuff. So dollars greater than 10 cents? Yes, I'll make that first apple. I'll make the second one and the third one, and blah, 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 until I get to the point where the marginal benefit that I get paid for the next apple as a producer is equal to the marginal cost of production. And that's where I'm going to stop. So for both consumers and producers, we want to produce or consume more until our own personal marginal benefit equals marginal cost. So with that all in mind, how can we then think about all of this from society's point of view? So let's talk about efficiency. The economic concept of efficiency is when economic surplus is not just maximized for individual people, for buyers or sellers. It's when economic surplus is maximized from society's point of view. For any given item or object or apple that gets sold and consumed, well, we can think about, from society's point of view, how much better off was society made by the production and consumption of that apple? Well, if it's my second apple, I just got $4 of value out of it. So maybe that's a 4. And how much did it cost? From society's point of view, how much of society's resources were used to produce that apple? Well, maybe it cost 10 cents of resources to use. Well, if it brought me $4 of value and it only cost the producer 10 cents to make, well, then that's clearly, from society's point of view, society has become better off because of the production and sale of that apple. But then how many apples would society like to see produced and sold? The same rule applies. Marginal benefit equals marginal cost. We want to keep producing more and more until we reach the point where marginal benefit equals marginal cost, and then society says that's the optimal number. We have extracted all the surplus we possibly can out of this market. If anybody produced any more or consumed any more, we'd be wasting resources that would be better put to some other use. That's the idea of efficiency. All of the surplus has been extracted from a market. And things are being allocated efficiently to maximize individual and society surplus as well. Very briefly, we can also see what this looks like on a graph. Now, one neat thing about this, the fact that marginal benefit equals marginal cost, if you're a consumer, that means that the demand curve represents your marginal benefit. How do we know that? Well, the demand curve says for a given price, how many units do you want to buy? Golden rule says set marginal benefit equal to marginal cost. What's your marginal cost as a consumer? It's the price. So you're going to keep buying until the price equals your marginal benefit, which means that whatever the price is, we can find your marginal benefit at that exact same point on the demand curve. So the demand is the same thing as the marginal benefit curve. How about for producers? For producers, it's the same idea. How much are you going to produce? Well, you want to set marginal benefit equal to marginal cost. And what's your marginal benefit? Well, it's whatever you get paid for the good. That's the price. So you're going to keep producing until the price is equal to your marginal cost, which means that we can find your marginal cost at the same place as the price on your supply curve. There we go. Okay, so now let's think about what the competitive market does. The competitive market says that we will reach equilibrium where supply and demand cross. And that's going to be right here. So what's happening right here? Well, supply and demand are at the same point. Price is at the same point on both curves. And if demand represents marginal benefit from society's point of view, because what is society getting out of this? It gets people who are enjoying the good. And it represents marginal cost on the supply side from the economy's point of view. Well, why is that? Well, because what does it cost society to produce a thing? Whatever resources had to be given up, which came from the producer. So when they're equal, that means that marginal benefit from society's point of view equals marginal cost. So a competitive market in equilibrium is not just maximizing surplus for the individual consumers and the individual producers. It is also maximizing surplus from society's point of view, giving us an efficient outcome, of course, as long as the market is competitive, has no externalities, no market failures. We'll get to all that stuff a little bit later. But in the basic version, letting the competitive market get to its equilibrium point maximizes efficiency from society's point of view. Make sure that we are using resources in the most efficient way possible with no waste. All right, that's it. Thank you very much.